There are moments when you catch yourself noticing something that everyone else seems to miss. It might be the slight hesitation in someone's voice before they say they're fine. It might be the uncomfortable feeling that you're pretending to be someone you're not, just to fit into a room. Or maybe it's the strange habit of questioning your own thoughts instead of blindly believing them. While other people move confidently through life, you often pause, reflect, and wonder if there's something you're overlooking. Sometimes that can feel exhausting. You may even wish your mind were quieter. You watch people make quick decisions, ignore uncomfortable truths, and seem perfectly content with simple answers. Meanwhile, your own thoughts refuse to settle. You examine your motives, replay conversations, and ask questions that don't have easy answers. It can make you feel different, sometimes even lonely. But what if that discomfort isn't a flaw? What if it's evidence that your mind is operating in a way most people never experience? What if the very thing you've been trying to silence is actually one of your greatest psychological strengths? If this already feels strangely familiar, take a moment to subscribe, because what comes next may explain things you've been trying to understand about yourself for years. Psychologists have long observed that genuine self-awareness is surprisingly uncommon. While most people spend their lives reacting automatically to their emotions, beliefs, and habits, a smaller group develops the ability to step back and observe their own mind, almost as if they're watching another person. Carl Jung believed that one of the greatest challenges in life is becoming conscious of the unconscious. In other words, learning to recognize the hidden patterns that quietly shape our decisions, fears, and relationships. The strange thing is that this process rarely feels comfortable. Greater awareness doesn't immediately bring peace. It often brings confusion first. The more clearly you see yourself, the more impossible it becomes to keep living behind comforting illusions. And that's where everything begins to change. Many people believe constantly questioning themselves is a sign of insecurity, but sometimes it's actually a sign of remarkable psychological depth. Someone with little self-awareness rarely questions their behavior because they assume they're already right. A self-aware person, however, understands something most people don't. They recognize that every human being has blind spots, including themselves. That willingness to question your own thinking isn't weakness. It's intellectual humility. It's the beginning of wisdom. And once you understand that, many experiences you've been judging about yourself begin to look completely different. The first sign you're more self-aware than the average person is that you notice your emotional reactions before acting on them. You still feel anger, disappointment, or fear like everyone else, but there's often a quiet voice asking, "Why am I reacting this way?" That small pause may seem insignificant, yet psychologists know it's one of the strongest predictors of emotional maturity. You're no longer completely controlled by your emotions because you've begun observing them instead of becoming them. But this is only where the story begins. Another sign is that you're comfortable admitting when you're wrong, not because it feels good, but because protecting your ego has become less important than discovering the truth. Most people defend their opinions because changing them feels like losing. A self-aware person sees growth differently. Every mistake becomes new information about who they are and who they're becoming. Yet something even more surprising happens next. You often feel uncomfortable in conversations built entirely on appearances. Gossip, constant comparison, or pretending everything is perfect can leave you emotionally drained. It's not that you think you're better than anyone else. It's simply that your mind naturally searches for authenticity. Surface-level interactions begin to feel empty because you've developed a deeper need for genuine human connection. The fourth sign is one many people misunderstand. You spend a surprising amount of time alone, not because you dislike people, but because solitude gives you access to your own thoughts. In silence, you process experiences, examine your decisions, and reconnect with yourself. Carl Jung believed that those who look inward awaken to parts of themselves that remain invisible to everyone else. Solitude becomes less about escaping the world and more about understanding your place within it. If you've ever felt this way, let me know in the comments. Your experience may be exactly what someone else reading the comments needs to hear. The fifth sign may be the most revealing of all. You frequently notice contradictions within yourself. You recognize that you can be confident in one moment and uncertain in another, kind yet impatient, brave yet afraid. Rather than denying these contradictions, you accept that human beings are wonderfully complex. This ability to hold opposing truths without pretending life is simple reflects a level of psychological maturity that many people spend decades trying to develop. And yet there is another layer beneath all of this. Real self-awareness eventually changes the way you move through life. Instead of chasing approval, you begin chasing alignment. Instead of asking, "What will people think?" you quietly begin asking, "Is this true to who I am?" Your confidence becomes quieter because it no longer depends on constant validation. Your relationships become healthier because you stop expecting others to complete parts of yourself you've never understood. Difficult emotions stop feeling like enemies and become teachers instead. This transformation rarely happens overnight. It's built through hundreds of honest conversations with yourself that no one else ever sees. Imagine waking up without feeling the need to prove your worth every single day. Imagine making decisions based on your values instead of other people's expectations. Imagine trusting yourself enough to walk away from situations that no longer reflect who you've become. That's what growing self-awareness gradually creates. You stop living on autopilot. You become intentional. You begin recognizing that every experience, even painful ones, has been shaping your character rather than defining your limits. The future version of you isn't someone without flaws. It's someone who understands those flaws without allowing them to become an identity. It's someone who listens more carefully, judges less quickly, forgives more easily, and lives with a quiet confidence that doesn't need constant applause. And perhaps that's the greatest freedom of all. If you're committed to becoming this version of yourself, subscribe and join a community of people who are choosing depth over conformity. The truth is, self-awareness has never been about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. Honest about your fears. Honest about your strengths. Honest about the stories you've been telling yourself for years. Once that honesty begins, something remarkable happens. You stop trying to become someone else. You finally become more fully yourself. Perhaps the people who seem the most certain aren't always the wisest. Perhaps true wisdom belongs to those courageous enough to keep discovering who they are, even when the answers are uncomfortable. Maybe the reason you've always felt different isn't because something was missing. Maybe it's because you've been paying attention to parts of yourself that most people never stop long enough to notice. Which part of this felt like something you've been living without having the words for? Share it in the comments below. Someone else may need to hear exactly what you have to say.